Hello, everybody. Welcome to Groomed.Connect with Michael Donahue and
The not one and only, but a Brian May.
you're not the one and only. Actually, there's a famous Brian May who plays the guitar like you, has longer hair than you. Well, has
Uh,
hair, actually.
yeah,
Guitar.
there's another one out there too that scores movies, I think. So
Oh, really? Brian May
yeah.
is really. So there's no Michael Donahue's. I mean, there's a few, I think, but I
No,
haven't heard.
you can't tell me
Nobody's
come
famous.
on. There's not more Michael Don, maybe not famous one.
Well, in Boston, they're all sitting at bar stools right now on L Street. I digress.
Uh,
Get over here. The socks are on. Come on. The Pats are gonna be on tomorrow. All right, I better stop. Um,
that's it.
well, hey, Brian, we've had a week, man. It's been crazy. Yeah,
We've had a month, man.
yeah. You and I haven't been able to riff for a while. We've had all these guests on. We are gonna have a guest on today. She'll be on in a minute here. She'll jump on. But Brian and I wanted to take a few minutes and just talk about a couple things. So we've gotten to be close friends with some of these victims. We've had a lot of people come through our way, like through the podcast and then you just kind of get to know some of these people and you just bond with them. And one of
Yep.
them is Melissa Holcomb, who we've had on the podcast. She's awesome. She has a son. She's a single mom. She's doing the best she can. She's an amazing human being. But somebody from her past this week, Brian, virtue signaled on her, and somebody who's close to Jeannie, probably still on our board or was on our board or something like that, um, decided to reach out to her and blast her with some what I would call virtue signaling, by
Yeah.
you know yeah, just basically trying to put her in her place, calling her, on a like that she was on a crusade. And what's funny about that is that's the third time I've heard that word coming from that side. So I think, they're getting their talking points together, and they're calling this a crusade, and which is whatever. I mean, so in other words, like demonizing it as some kind of offshoot thing, that
Right.
trivializing it like it's some little crusade, that Mike and Brian are on or whatever. And we know it's more than that. And so, Brian, what do you think of that?
Yeah, this particular person apparently has connections with Josh Mayo as well, so it's like all in the family, sort of. M- to use the word crusade is, I'm going to say it's nefarious, because it implies a level of illegitimacy to what we and the people who are coming on this podcast are trying to do, and it implies that it's just, people are having a fit and wanting to come on and rant and rave when they really don't need to. And that is, like I said, that is nefarious. It at best it's ignorant. At best, people who use that word or describe what we're doing here, it's stupid. I'll just use that word. At worst, it's nefarious. It's probably somewhere in between for most of these people, but um, I think what people really need to understand is we're not talking about run-of-the-mill church hurt here, right? We're not saying, gosh, my pastor didn't pick me to lead this Sunday school class, or I never get up to, take the offering, or those kinds of things. They won't let me usher. This
Right.
is not what we're talking about, right? We're talking about systematic, spiritual, psychological, mental, and sometimes sexual abuse. That is, there's a motive behind it to break people down. They would say, so we can build you up in the image of Christ. I would say, break you down so we can control you and get you to do and think what we want you to do and think. And
Right.
that's completely different thing. And my mind, no human being should have to suffer through that.
Yeah, I think the guy, Brian, that said that to her was somebody who, benefits from the
Yeah.
ministry of Jeannie Mayo and Josh Mayo, the way, whatever, and I don't know him, but I would say that he probably, is stupid about that stuff, doesn't know the real trauma that people have, that have gone through. It's like that Shawshank Redemption quote that my friend Steve Hayes is writing a book right now, and he's kind of bringing that analogy around to that movie where, the system, first you hate those walls. You get put in prison and you hate them, and then you end up getting used to them, and then you end up needing them.
Yeah.
And that whole analogy fits there because I think that guy probably needs Jeannie Mayo in his life. He needs what she brings to the table. And so it's an offense to him that we are calling out a sinful pattern. He's not going to see it. No matter what you do, that guy's not going to see it because he doesn't want to see it. He can't see it. It doesn't fit his narrative, his nice cushy little life that he has, right? And what's interesting is yesterday I got a call from a friend of mine who I wouldn't exactly put him in that category with this guy a year ago, but he was pretty ignorant to what was happening. And little by little, his eyes are opening and he's seeing it. And he called me yesterday and he basically said what a lot of people have been saying is, Mike, thanks for opening my eyes. Thanks. This is becoming more and more real to me that this is a problem and this is heinous. Right. And so if you categorize it as crusade, then it's like, oh, it's a couple of guys just whining about, their past and they're
Mhm.
bitter and, whatever. And this guy actually started the debate with me by saying he's praying for me that my anger would be replaced by grace. And I put right back to him immediately. I said, "No, I don't pray that. I don't want my anger to be replaced. I don't want my anger to go away." And then he said, well, then we talked to each other on the phone and he said, "No, I probably meant to say I don't want your bitterness, like basically I don't want you to be bitter." And I said, "Man, I'm not bitter. I'm really not bitter. If I was bitter, I would do this completely. I wouldn't get on a freaking podcast. If I was bitter, I would make her pay and she wouldn't even know I was in the state. Like I would, but I'm not bitter. I'm
Yeah.
not at all." And so that ignorance, that's so ignorant how they categorize that.
Right.
It's just I'm angry, yes, but anger is good. Anger changes things.
Yeah.
And so anyways, I'm on a rabbit trail, but that basically was my conversation yesterday.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting to me. I mean, I don't, this particular person who reached out to Melissa, I mean, I'm not trying to attribute any specific motive to this person. I don't know. I'm just sort of using this person as an example of people making those kinds of comments. And what what I get is when people are curious, when they say, "Hey, wait a minute, this is not my experience. What are you guys talking about? Are you sure? Is this right?" And they come and they ask questions. Um, these people, they're not like that. They just come with this, you guys either you're angry as though anger is not a legitimate emotion, and it is, and we could talk ad nauseum about that. Rage isn't, but anger serves a purpose, sets up boundaries, tells you that that there's something wrong. They automatically assume that we're bitter. Um, and they automatically assume, like I said at the beginning of this, that what we're doing is not legitimate. And I'll just say it again, what I said at the top, to take that position, to not be curious, to not ask questions, but just to come like you've got your mind made up, that the way things are, is to denigrate every story that's been told either on this podcast, on the change.org petition site, on our private Facebook page, or something else that Elise is probably going to tell us about when she comes on coming up here. But it's to say to these people, your stories don't matter. Your experience doesn't matter. Go away, just shut up, forgive, deal with your own crap and move on with it. Get over
Right.
it. Essentially, that's what they're saying is get over it.
Right.
And sorry, that is not, that is not loving, caring, compassionate, kind. Go to wherever the verse is in Corinthians and read the qualities of love. It's none of those things.
It's First Corinthians 13, Brian. You
Thank,
should know that. I've had
thank,
many Valentine cards with that scripture on it. Well, Brian kind of alluded to it, but we have a guest today. Uh, Elise, how are you?
Hello. I'm great.
Good to see you.
good to see you guys.
I just saw you on the Facebook, your little picture. So now that I get to see you kind of live, it's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, where are you calling from today?
Vacaville, California. It's a
Woo!
small cow town between San Francisco and Sacramento.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. All right. I
Yeah.
was just actually in Seattle yesterday. So I was up in the West Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
West
Yeah.
Coast. Ain't the
Pretty.
best coast.
Well, Brian
But
and I are wanting to bring some people on that weren't necessarily groomed by Jeannie or hurt by Jeannie, but one of her disciples. We'll use that word loosely. I call them flying monkeys, but whatever. Uh, Bottom line, people who were influenced by that philosophy and that dogma, and it trickles down because her big thing is Jeannie's big thing is raising up leaders and in the way that she does things. And Elise was a product of somebody who was raised up by Jeannie and then got hurt with the same kind of philosophies. So we thought it'd be interesting to have somebody on, and she won't be the last one. We have a couple of them lined up that kind of fit that category. But Elise, we are so glad that you are with us today. And why don't you just give us a quick, tell us your story. Tell us what happened, what's
yeah.
going on.
Can I say one thing to the last thing Brian said before you guys introduced me?
100%.
Right.
Okay. Because it's something that has really been bugging me, especially after what you guys were talking about, what was said to one of our friends yesterday. And I've had people say that to me in my TikToks. I have a TikTok called Truth in the Sanctuary, and I spill all the tea on my life. And people say, get over it. And my response to them is, how can I get over something? How can you tell me to get over something that literally paralyzes my daily life every day? And I've been out of it for 8 years. I can't get over it. When my husband and I get in an argument and I freeze up and I panic and I can't even have a healthy conversation with him, that's because of what I went through. When I'm in church and I start to have a panic attack when they sing a certain worship song, that's because you can't tell people to get over something that literally paralyzes them every day.
Yeah.
So I just
100%.
wanted to say that.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's good.
And
Yeah.
I think, Mike, we're going to have to find a neuroscientist sometime to come on here because I'm just an amateur, right? I'm a hack, but the thing that people don't understand, and we've read similar comments on the private Facebook page, talking to people who've been in therapy for years, is that those experiences they leave physical traces in our brains.
Yes.
And we have to do the work to rewire those. And what Elise is talking about is real. I mean, it's psychological. It's also biological. And this work is important. And part of this work is for people like Elise and some of our guests that we've had to come on and tell their stories. So,
Yeah.
100%.
And what those people are really saying, let's be clear, is they want to paint over mold, right? That
Yeah.
mold that is there it's alive. Mold is alive. And so until you kill it, scrape it, get rid of it, you're just painting over it, right? So
Yep.
that's crap. That's just a lazy way of looking at trauma. And
Yeah.
just get over it. I'll just paint over it. So just go on, right? Well, you got to look into that stuff. And Brian, you're absolutely right. So
Yeah.
Elise, let's hear it. How are
Um,
you?
All right. So, I actually didn't grow up in an AG church. Kind of thankful for it. Because
You are.
and I'm thankful for it because I had a really strong foundation outside the Assemblies of God. My parents are incredible Christians. They actually live in my backyard, not in a tent or something. They have, they,
You're gonna
I
have to
did
unpack
love to
that a
joke
little
that
bit.
though. My parents live in my backyard. Um, they actually have their own apartment in my backyard. Plumbing and
Okay.
everything. But they are incredible Christians and they raised me with a very safe Jesus, a very safe representation of who Jesus is. And that was my foundation. It's the reason why I still am able to hold on to my faith today. I think had I not had my parents, I'd for sure be an atheist by now. And so I went to a Baptist church, felt called into ministry at 12 years old. I was like that girl. Like any chance I got in school to write about Jesus, because I went to a public school, like I was that nerdy Christian who like
Yeah.
would carry her Bible and like put it on her desk every day just so people would ask her about it. And so I felt called into ministry at 12 years old. Knew I was supposed to preach. Like I knew that was going to be my gifting. And just wanted to write sermons and went to my pastor and he was like, "That's really cute. You should marry a pastor, but you'll never be one and you'll never preach." And I was like, "No, I want the microphone in my hand. I don't want to follow around some dude with one." And so as soon as I got a car, I started church hopping. And just sounds so silly, like a 16-year-old so sold out for Jesus that they're going to find their own church. But that was me. And I landed at this church that I had kind of heard about. They were doing this drama called Interview with the Devil around Halloween. And I was like, this church has the devil. Like they invited the devil in. It was just some other high school kid dressed as Satan. And
With Nike shoes, and he
yes,
smelled like
yes,
a Happy Meal.
yes. I'm actually friends with that person.
Oh,
Yeah. And so at the end of the drama, they do a salvation altar call, and this woman gets up and does it. And I'm like, this woman is doing what I want. And I'm watching all these high school friends of mine that I've been praying to know Jesus for years. I'm watching them all walk to the front and receive Jesus. And I come from a Baptist church. Like, you don't get saved on a Wednesday night. You get saved at winter camp. Like, you save that decision for winter camp. And so I'm like, wait, people
it's in
get
the
saved
rules.
outside of camp? This is unheard of. And so my eyes were just like open to this whole AG world of women in ministry, people getting saved all the time. And I thought it was amazing. And so I dove in head first. And I was sold out. Like I would do anything at any time for these pastors. Um, at the same time that I became an intern for them, I joined their school of ministry. Was the same time they got into the cadre underneath Jeannie Mayo. I actually, in my first year of my internship, I sat on the floor of my youth pastor's office while she was on one of the weekly, I think Jeannie used to do these like weekly cadre calls with her whole cadre team, and they could ask her questions about their youth ministries. And then like they'd all get to hear the answers that she had for everyone. And I like sat in on one of those. And so within that youth ministry, our youth pastors left the church for a reason, and no one in the church could uphold what they were doing. They were running 1,000,000 miles a minute, so we're us interns, and no one could uphold it. And so the whole internship crumbled. I went on to Southeastern, which is a Assemblies of God school. And I will die on the hill that it is the best thing the Assemblies of God handed me. I love Southeastern. Just went back a year and a half ago and like had lunch with my mentor and my husband on campus. Uh, that school healed me from so much of what I experienced my first year and a half. And I I wished I would have listened to that healing better because I just went right back home to my pastors when they offered me an internship. They got hired at a mega church in our district, and they were like, "Hey, we're at this massive church. We're going to run this massive youth ministry. And like, this is what we've been dreaming of. Do you want to come get your intern hours for your degree here?" And I was like, sure. And so I came home for the summer and then ended up not leaving. Ended up staying with them for 8 years there at that church. Yeah. And that was in San Jose. And of course, that was like a lot because I was the only person up until I was on staff as a pastor. I was the only person in the internship or on staff. Um, maybe not on staff, but I was the only person in the internship or like the youth leadership team that didn't live with their mom and dad. Like I was the only one like working a job to pay rent. Everyone else was like living at home because it's Silicon Valley. Like
Right.
the church couldn't even afford like an apartment complex for us interns. That would have never ever happened.
Right.
I mean, rent there is when I was there renting an apartment, I think when I left, it was $2,800 for a 1-bedroom, and that was like 7, 8 years ago. It was wild.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's like in a bad area. But anyways, that's a rabbit trail. Um, but so I was working really hard. So my first year, there was no internship because the church had a bad reputation or something. I wasn't there before, but somehow there was like a bad taste in the church's mouth with the internship. So they crushed the internship that was previously there before my pastors. And then they were like, let's just take a year off, no interns allowed. Um, and so I just came on as like a adult leader. I wasn't in a formal internship. I was working at Starbucks and a restaurant, going to school at Southeastern online because I did finish my degree. And I was serving almost full-time hours for
Wow.
nothing. Yeah. And I loved it. I lived for it. And so I did that for a year, and then they got an internship program. They built what they called a school of leadership. Sounds familiar, right? Leadership college.
Yeah.
Um, and
AKA cult. But go ahead.
yeah, yes. So they built this leadership school, and I joined it and got in. We had to do a boot camp to get into the program. And this boot camp holds some of the most traumatizing memories of my life. Like things that affect me today come from this one weekend. Um, and I don't want to, I could go on for, there's like 90 minutes of me talking about these boot camps on my TikTok. So we don't have 90 minutes. But like just some snips of it would be, we got blindfolded and put in vans. We were only allowed to bring 11 items with us. We weren't allowed to speak or talk without being spoken to. We didn't know where we were going. We got driven to the mountains. And my husband's least favorite story is that after like a long day of workouts, only eating peanut butter and jelly and granola bars, like working out until we threw up, running miles, up hills and everything. At the end of that night, they did a mousetrap like maze where we were one of us was blindfolded and one of us was not. I was with my roommate. I rented a room from her and her mom, and I was paired with my roommate, and I had to get on my hands and knees in a dark room. I'm blindfolded, and there's like 6 different types of heavy metal and rock and roll music blasting from different speakers all over the room. And I'm supposed to listen to my roommate's voice, give me directions to get through the mousetrap maze. And they're like telling me they're on the sides of you, they're below you, they're on top of you. And you have to, and I have on this backpack that has flour in it because that's the weight of ministry. And in ministry, you're never allowed to stop. Like your whole world can be falling apart, but you cannot put down the weight of ministry. And so I'm like crawling with this backpack of flour on my back through these mouth traps. And I'm having a panic attack because I actually do have PTSD from when I was 5. Someone tried to kidnap me.
Oh,
Whole different story. But I have PTSD from this because I was so little when it happened. And I do not like being in such like I don't like I cannot go to haunted houses. Like it'll send me into a full-blown panic. Like I'll probably
right.
end up in a hospital. And so to be blindfolded and told that there's unexpected situations ahead, and then there's music going on everywhere, and I'm already deliriously exhausted physically and mentally. And my boss, my youth pastor, um, he's like telling me, like, get through the maze. Like, you need to listen to God's voice. There's chaos everywhere, but you need to listen to God's voice. And my roommate is like, can I just pray for her? Like, she's freaking out. And he's like, no, get her through the maze. And it was awful. When I finally finished, I think I just like held on to my roommate and bawled my eyes out. And she just like prayed over me and was like, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. And then they kept telling her, like, stop talking unless you're being spoken to. And so she's like whispering encouragement in my ear. Um, he did this stupid tug of war game.
Before we move on from that story, just to be
Yeah.
clear, just to paint a picture. So you go through this experience. I mean, I could say 20 things that they did that just like if you were my daughter, there would have been a reckoning had I found out about this. But anyway, you come through this maze. You are obviously traumatized in the moment. You're crying, weeping. Someone's trying to comfort you. And these leaders are saying, no, don't do that. Just basically saying to you, let the suffering continue. There was no consolation. There was nothing like that. Am I painting that picture right?
Yeah, I mean, after my roommate stopped comforting me, they walked us back out of the room so the next group could go in and do the activity. And they had me stand in the line with everyone else. Like we were all lined up waiting. And they were doing this activity where we had to hold like these tiles out in front of us, like floor tiles. Um, and my youth pastor, the female, she would like taunt us by putting like her Bible on a tile so it would get even heavier, or she like would put her coffee cup on it because she was like drinking coffee. Yeah. And so I'm like still have tears in my eyes and I'm like holding this tile and I know I don't want to be yelled at anymore. I don't want to get disciplined anymore. I had broken the rules a couple times on this trip and gotten in trouble. And so I was like, I'm not going to say that I'm freaking out. I'm just going to like hold my stupid tile and be quiet. And that's kind of the mentality that I took into trauma the rest of my life. Like from that point forward, like when trauma would happen, I I was like, don't let anyone know that there's trauma in your life. Like get in line, shut up and keep moving forward. There's a job to be done.
Which what Brian is saying is if we had some neuroscientists on here, they would say that's the exact I'm pretty sure they would say that's the exact opposite that you're supposed to do. If you're in a traumatic situation, you need to tell somebody, you need to get help, you need to have agency, you need
Yeah.
to have freedom to make a decision, not feel trapped. That's awful. That's
Yeah.
awful. They're stupid. They're just stupid people. Sorry, but they're
Yeah.
stupid people.
Um So then the next morning, I mean, and there's tons of activities I'm leaving out in this story.
Yeah.
There's so many. But the other one that was really difficult for me was the next, and it's probably the same exact feeling that I had the night before. So the next morning, they did feed us a nice breakfast instead of PB&J. And after breakfast, though, we did a workout, and then they were like, "Hey, we're gonna play tug of war." And they do a couple rounds of it, like all the girls versus all the boys, a mix of girls and boys on each side. We had 8 interns, 4 girls and 4 boys. Just happened to be the way it was that year. And then they said, "Now we're gonna challenge you guys." And they put me, I don't remember at what point I kind of black out at this memory. They put me against 2 or 3 of my male interns. And one of those male interns, he loved to work out. In fact, he was helping lead the workouts at boot camp, even though he was an intern. And so he's strong, is what I'm trying to say. And at the time, I'm 115 pounds and 5 feet tall. And I do not work out for fun. And I mean, I didn't have any time, right? Like I lived in Silicon Valley. I worked my butt off when I wasn't at church
Right.
just to make enough money for ramen. So they put me in this tug of war against these boys, like multiple boys. And my youth pastor, before he lets me start pulling, he says, "I want you to tell me one person that you want to receive Jesus this year." And I list off the most important person in my life to me that doesn't know the Lord. And he starts go with a tug of war. And he is yelling in my face that this person that I love with everything inside of me that does not know the Lord, that they are dying and going to hell, and I need to pull harder. Pull them out of hell. Are you going to give your all, or are you going to give up when times get tough? Like, this is the reality. The Bible says, and he's like quoting like scripture and telling me that this person I love in my life is going to die and go to hell. And I need to pull them out of hell. And what do you think happens? I'm against 2 to 3 men. I lose. Like I fall on my face, get pulled into this tug of war. I don't think there was mud, but I get like pulled on my face in the grass. And he's like, "All right, you're done. You failed." And so I go and I sit on the sideline of the field that we're on. And his wife, one of our pastors, came over and sat next to me. And I was really close with his wife. She knows like everything in my life. And she comes and she sits down next to me and she tells me, you know, so and so intern. And she's talking about back at our previous church, one of my best friends, who's a very scrawny man. Like he's very skinny, amazing guy, still best friends with him. He works in Disneyland. I love him. But she was like, he pulled 3 of his people down at his boot camp. And that's what happens when you give your all, is that God gives you supernatural strength to accomplish what is in front of you. And she told me, she goes, I am disappointed. You did not give that your all. You gave up. And she starts pointing to different situations throughout boot camp. When this happened at boot, like you gave up last night. You gave up on the run. You gave up on this activity. You didn't give your all in this activity. And you keep on trying to take the short way out. And is that what you're going to do in ministry? Are you going to take shortcuts? And because it's tied to someone that I love dearly and the thought of them going to hell, it messed with me so much.
Oh,
And it
yeah.
probably did exactly what was intended, which was I gave my all in every ministry circumstance
Yeah.
until I realized better when I met my husband 8 years later and joined his church. Like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
Because
yeah,
that's what happens when they motivate you with fear
Here.
yeah,
and dread rather than what we understand. I understand anyway. I think Jesus would say that, isn't there a scripture something says like the greatest is love? I don't know.
yeah,
Apparently I don't know the Bible that well, but these people probably know it better. By the way, I never read the part where Jesus took his disciples through boot camp, but that's probably another discussion for another day. But the folks we're talking about at the beginning of this podcast, I want you to look Elise in the eye right now, if you're watching this, and say, get over it, honey. Just go
Yeah.
ahead and then see how you feel about yourself for saying that.
Yeah.
And if you
It's
feel
not a
okay,
crusade.
then say go check yourself in and
yeah.
get some help.
Yeah.
And, we weren't allowed to talk about boot camp. That was one of the rules of boot camp, was you don't speak about it. And so I
Yeah.
had an idea that from the previous interns from the previous church, like I had an idea of what it entailed. But those interns, even after our youth ministry fell apart and they all moved on to different things, like no one would tell me what it actually entailed. And I called that best friend of mine, that guy, and was like, "Okay, what am I in for?" And he's like, "I'm not going to tell you. You know me. Like I won't break the rules, but just be prepared for a long weekend and like you'll be okay." Um and he's like, "You can call me when you're done." And it became a joke amongst our internship and the intern years that came after me, that we called it Disneyland, which I really hate because I'm a big Disneyland person. Um, but like we would joke about it and we'd be like, oh yeah, that one time in Disneyland. And it was like that was not no Disneyland.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
No.
And let's be clear about this. That was 100% about manipulating you to work harder for them to propagate their ministry and whatever. I mean, I'm not trying to assign a motive, but I was actually in all that stuff, worked for Genie for 10 years.
Yeah.
I know the playbook. I know why they did that. And 100% to get you to, never question them when they ask you not to go on vacation when you want to go with your family, or, to not go to a funeral when someone dies. I mean, how many testimonies have we heard so far, and we haven't even scratched the surface yet, of people that when one of those students or interns wanted to go and do something with their family, they guilted them into not going because of bullshit like that, like people going to hell. Meantime, they're driving around in really nice cars, and
Yeah.
it's just a double standard, and it's all control and manipulation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one of the things,
I missed my best friend's wedding. I was asked to be a bridesmaid at my best friend's wedding when I was a junior high pastor on staff with them. And them and the senior pastor both said, no, it's in Michigan. There could be a snowstorm. You won't get back in time for the annual board meeting.
Oh, yeah.
And I was
I
like,
remember that board meeting because that just changed the world. Oh, wait a minute. You know?
I was like, "Can
Mm.
I record, like, a video of me, like, giving the report on the junior high ministry? Like, I actually have to physically sit there," and I was like, "I'll get a flight back." They're like, "No, it's Michigan in November. You'll never get a flight back. It'll be a snowstorm."
Yeah, they
So I
just
missed it.
control, and then they refer back to your commitment level and all
Yeah.
this stuff. It's just and they preach balance. They'll preach family first and friends first and
Well, and
all that
you know
stuff.
what? At boot camp, one of the activities that I didn't mention ties directly to what you just said. They took these logs or rocks out into this lake, and I remember we were all like, "Are you gonna make us walk on water? Like, what's going on?" But they took us like these like rocks or logs, and we all stood on like different platforms in the middle of water. And then they told us to put our hands out like this. I know it's hard to see. But they told us to put our hands out. And then they would come and they would bring logs and sticks and twigs and rocks and they'd place them in our hands. And my roommate was the one who figured it out. And she was the one like that won the activity because eventually my roommate said like permission to speak because we weren't allowed to talk. And she goes, permission to speak. And they said yes. And she said, "May I say no?" And they were like, "Everybody can drop your logs. You need to know how much you can hold." And like they did a whole lesson on how to not do too much. But we've got bags of flour on our backs that are called the weight of ministry. Like, and I told Mike yesterday that I put my backpack down because I had an asthma attack and I asked for permission to get my inhaler out. And they made everyone else run a mile because I accidentally put my weight of ministry down to get the inhaler out of the front pocket.
That's cultish, Brian. That's a cult.
It is 100% a cult, and there's just no way to get around that. I don't care if you guys were in a Krishna camp, it would be a cult. I don't care, what you were doing, it would be a cult. The only thing I'm sitting here thinking, the only thing in my mind that anything that strenuous, anything that arduous, anything that would cause you to give up everything for your teammate would be like if you were in SEAL training or something, right? Because there's life and death on the line. There isn't life and death on the line. I mean, we won't get into all the theological BS that they were shoving down your throat, trying to make you fear this, ineffable God of love. But anyway, uh, no, this has no place. I mean, this is clearly. I don't care how many crosses they have, how many Bible verses they know. This is clearly a cult.
Right. And and here's why I think it is too. I agree with you, Brian. And it what you're trying to do when you are mentoring somebody is to get them to a place where they have an independent relationship with Jesus Christ and the Holy Spirit where they're hearing his voice. So so they you're not deciding for them what you should be convicted about, right? Because that's just coercion. I did a Groomed.Help on this. And I wish I would have taken some more time with it, but because the more I think about it, the more I think this is what these programs are. They're just 100% coercion, and they're not conviction. Like they're not teaching you to be convicted about your life and how you're going to conduct yourself as a Christian and hearing God and what he cares about, right? Because that's what when I was discipling people, that's what I wanted them. I wanted them to take the time to listen to what God was saying to them about individual situations. And it's different for everybody. It's not one cookie cutter philosophy. It can be that's why we need the body. We need people who are the heads, the hands, the feet, the whatever because they're going to feel different things and that's spontaneity and it's agency, it's you having your own relationship with God, but they put you in this machine that cranks out these individual people. I mean there's these basically a form of what they think a Christian should look like. They don't give you any kind of, again, agency. They don't give you any kind of uh independence on that, and I hate that. It's opposite of the Bible.
Checked your uniqueness as a human being, and that is one of the most undignifying things that you could do to another person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
And it puts you in a place, and it puts you in a submissive place to them, that they're the bosses. They hear from God. They're the prophets. And that's and d d how do you know? I mean, then you find out that they're doing crazy stuff on the side. I mean, cheating on their husbands and wife, I mean, you got immorality in the house. And I don't know about this situation, but other situations have been that way. You're like, "Well, wait
Yeah,
a minute. I thought you were adhering to these, these rules, but they're not.
yeah,
It's bullshit.
yeah,
It's all
yeah,
control."
yeah. So Elise, I'm curious. At what point did you come to a realization that, wait a minute, maybe it's not me, maybe it's them? How did that happen?
I think it happened slowly. Um, there wasn't a I mean, there was a pinnacle moment in the very end, um, but it definitely happened slowly. Um, there would be times where, my female pastor would say something that would hurt my feelings, like, in year 2 or 3 at that I was of the 8 years, it was, like, 2 or 3. She would say something that hurt my feelings. I would pull her aside and confront her like Matthew 18. And I'm afraid of these people. Like, and I thought it was a healthy fear. But like I was afraid of them. So I like in confrontation, it's like me taking as much of the blame as I can. Um, but just saying like, hey, what you said hurt my feelings. And I just wanted you to know that because that's how the Bible tells us to deal with it. And I didn't want to have any offenses towards you. And, I want to be able to serve you, faithfully and loyally. And it was always turned around like, well, that sounds like an insecurity in you that we need to work on. And it was always turned back on me. And so I
Gaslight.
would learn, okay, at the same time that I was learning, like, don't confront, I was also learning, like, very slowly, it was the Lord, like, chipping away at, like, I was losing my critical thinking skills, but the Lord was like, no, 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 like, here, open your eyes a tiny bit. And then, like, just different things like that would happen. Like, my grandma got cancer and I wasn't allowed to leave a Wednesday night service to go home and meet my mom in the hospital, when she got diagnosed.
Cult. Cult. Cult.
There and then I think my eyes really started to open when I got engaged. I got engaged to, someone who's not my husband, and at the time, I was the junior high pastor. And we get engaged. He actually is the DYD's assistant. And so he's up in Sacramento. I'm in San Jose. It's like 3-hour difference. And so we are constantly driving back and forth between Sac and San Jose. And he ends up breaking off the engagement. And I just think he was more emotionally unstable of making decisions in his life. And so he was a great guy, definitely not marriage material though, and so I'm glad that that is not what it is. But my youth pastor started noticing this in him, and that's a great thing to notice, and she very much one night, right before I left to go visit his family for Christmas, and we were engaged, she, like, had a hour-long, like, come to Jesus conversation is what we used to call them. Like, "You need to leave this person. He's gonna ruin your life. He's gonna shatter you. I don't think he's in it. I think he's gonna spiral out of control." And, like, she was, like, honestly seeing some pretty correct things, but she was pressuring me into breaking up with him, and I kept on telling her, I told this man yes. I'm not gonna be the kind of wife that just leaves when things get hard, and so I'm gonna until, like, God really tells me to walk away, I'm not gonna walk away. The guy leaves me. Later on down the road, maybe a couple months, I bring a decision that I wanna make about the junior high missions trip. I'm junior high pastor. I wanna bring one of our adult leaders on the trip that is currently going to Azusa Pacific. And great girl, her sister's going on the trip as well as an adult leader, and I'm like, "This would be awesome." Like, we bring former students on mission trips all the time. As long as they're, like, in a church and, serving Jesus, like, why not? And I was like, "I'll get her background checked, like, I'll do all the work." And my youth pastor is like, I don't know. I think that ultimately that's a decision you need to bring to the senior pastor. So in our pastoral staff meeting, I bring up this choice I'd like to make, asking the senior pastor for permission to make the decision. And he goes off. He's like, this is an awful idea. Do you even know where this person is in their relationship with the Lord? Like, he just goes, and he's a very intense man. And he kind of just like goes off on me. And I'm like, okay, sorry, bad idea. Don't want to do it. We will not be doing this. I'm sorry. Like, here's the adult list. It's approved. I'm very sorry. And I like recoil. And later that night, the husband youth pastor, pulls me into his office and says, "Why are you wasting my wife's time?" And I was like, "Wasting her time? What do you mean?" Like, at this point, been serving you for 15 years. When people gossip about you, I whistle blow it. When people talk badly about you, I tell you. Like, I never let anyone talk trash about you. I whistle blow on every intern who breaks a rule or a youth leader who breaks a rule. I do all the hard things. Like, when one of our students needed to be taken to a pregnancy clinic and you didn't have time to do it because you have children, I drove them there. Even though I was the junior high pastor, I drove the high school student to a pregnancy clinic. Like, just the different things that the loyalty that I had. And like anyone in the church, if you were to ask who was the most loyal to these youth pastors, they'd be like, hands down, it's Elise. Like, she'll do anything for them. She has their back. And now he's telling me, like, why are you wasting her time? And I said, please give me an example of when I've wasted her time. And he goes, well, we told you not to buy a MacBook with your first check as a pastor, and you did. And I was like, why does that matter? Like,
Yeah.
I didn't know you had control over my finances. You can give me advice to not get an Apple credit card and buy a MacBook, but oh, I did it. Like, wait,
Yeah.
what?
It's control. You
Yeah.
you
And then
you were being independent and they couldn't
yeah,
handle it.
yeah.
Right.
And then he goes, and when we told you to break up with your ex, you didn't do it. She had a 2-hour-long conversation that night, missed putting our children to bed
Oh
so
my
she could
God.
talk to you. I know. So she could talk to you about the fact that this guy was going to hurt you and you didn't listen to her. And look what happened.
Yeah.
And I was like, instantly, like, you are bringing my like knee is starting to shake because I'm getting upset. He brought my personal life and a choice that I felt God had called me to stay in that relationship and to be a loyal girlfriend and fiance because
Yeah.
I didn't say yes to him with like no conviction.
Yeah.
It's not like, yes, I'll marry you and I hope the rest of this engagement is easy peasy. Like,
Right.
I wanted to be the woman that I knew I was in that relationship, which was loyal.
Right.
And until that guy left, and then I knew, like, okay, God is saving me from this relationship that's not going to be good for me. And now that conversation is being brought into the middle
Weaponized. It's
of
being
my work
weaponized.
performance.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
the most painful experience in my life at that time. Like, we were a mega church. I, and we were a mega church in the district, and I'm dating the DYD's assistant. When our engagement broke up, like, everyone was talking about it.
Yeah.
Like, it
Yeah.
wasn't just our church, it was, like, district wide.
Yeah. Yeah. You know what, honey, listen,
Yeah.
I want to say this to you. That's 100% wrong. Like they like what you learned by staying in the relationship is what it was priceless. Probably is helping your marriage today. It's probably making you a better wife. And
It definitely has.
their egos got involved in that. Their ego, because you didn't do what they told you to do. First of all, they shouldn't have ever told you what to do. They should be guiding you. Like, what do you think you should do? And then walk you through it. Like, stand next to you and go, okay, I'll trust you that you're hearing from God. We'll stay with you and we'll get your back if it gets crazy, and
Yeah.
be that kind of person. But instead, their ego got involved in it, and because you didn't do exactly what they felt like God was telling them to, you to do,
Yeah.
they weaponized that whole situation and brought it into your workplace, which is incredibly inappropriate. And
Yeah.
so, honey, you're fine. You're like, that's wrong. And I'm glad you stayed in that relationship, even though it didn't work out. But that's not the point. of it working out.
Right.
The point is obedience. The
Yeah.
point is listening to God.
Yeah.
Well,
Like I heard
the-
God.
and the point is, I'm sorry, but I'll just add on to that. The point is validating you as a person who has the
Yeah.
ability to receive counsel, receive advice, but for you to know your own heart and to know what you
Trust
should
you.
do. It's a complete violation of your agency.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there was a situation, like Mike said, like this has probably helped your marriage. There was a situation later down the road at a different church, not in the Assemblies of God, where my husband had a moral failure and we have survived that. And our marriage is incredible. But in that moment, my senior pastor and the youth pastor that I was serving, I was like kind of like the assistant student director, and they did not like that I was going to stay in my marriage. And I listened to God's voice, and I didn't just listen to God's voice, but I also quit because I said I am not going to work at a church where people cannot accept my marriage. If you can't accept my spouse, I can't accept you. Like, as someone once said, like, don't stand in rooms where your spouse isn't welcome. And I was like, okay, then I'm out. And I'm so glad that God healed me from that. And I like learned that in that engagement season previously, that then when me and my husband got in this situation, I was able to stand strong as a woman of God and be like, no, I know what happens when I listen to God's voice, and it is good. And I
Yeah.
am not going to go off of what godly counsel is saying over God's voice. Like, godly counsel is great. I'm appreciative for it in my life. My husband was just on the phone with the man who married us last night. Grant, I want to call him out, Grant Finch. Him and his wife have been there for me and my husband since the day I left the Assemblies of God. He is the man who, like, I can call him at any time and be like, Grant, I'm disoriented. I don't know. Like, with the AG's got me tangled. And he just walks me through it. And
Yeah.
so godly counsel can be great, but
It's not God.
it's
It's
not
not
God's
God.
voice.
It's not God.
Yeah.
God can use it, but it's not
Yeah.
God. And those
Yeah.
people think they're God. They
Yeah.
think they're God. And that's what's wrong. Ugh.
Yeah. So to answer Brian's question, so like that starts happening. And I actually start Googling in my office in San Jose. I start Googling AG intern abuse. Nothing comes up. Like,
Yeah.
master's commission abuse. Like, I just start Googling anything. I'm like, I cannot be the only one who's in a church like this. I can't be the only one who's in an internship situation like this. I mean, now I'm a pastor on staff, but I'm still in the same hell. And I can't be the only one. Like, what's happening to me has got to be wrong. And I'm terrified to go tell my senior pastor. I'm terrified to tell anyone else on staff, because then I'm betraying the people that I'm serving. And you don't do that, right? Like, that's against the rules in the AG. And so I just start Googling it. I actually bought a book called Toxic, like, Are You in Toxic Leadership, or Do You Have a Toxic Leader? Something like that. I bought it, and I bought it on my Kindle, and I literally opened up a separate Amazon account. So when I would sit in pastoral staff next to my female youth pastor, and I would open up my Kindle, so that way I would have my like leadership book we were going through, I didn't want her to see it in the list of books that I had on my Kindle. So I bought a second Amazon account to hide this book from them. Like, that's how afraid I was.
Cult.
And
Cult. Cult.
and
Brian's doodling again.
I
Uh-oh.
love it. So so I eventually start drawing boundaries, drawing lines. And there's one night that the female youth pastor invites me over to her house for a girls' night. And this is typical. I spend a lot of time with them and their family outside of church. A lot. And I was like a part of their family. And me and them and her and her daughter had a girls' night, and we came back to the house, put her daughter to bed. And she's like, do you want me to make you like coffee sundaes? And so we like made brownies or whatever. And we sat on the couch, and my senior pastor had just been voted in as the superintendent of our district. And so we were going to be getting a new senior pastor. And I me and her are talking, and her and her husband had kind of been talking about maybe they were going to go launch their own church. And so like I had an idea that they were like maybe on the way out, but obviously I was keeping that a secret for them. And so we're like talking, and she's like, I just wonder if like we need to start looking at like what God has next for you, because I just don't know if, the next senior pastor is going to tolerate you like we have.
Tolerate you?
Yeah.
Tolerate.
And what you have to know about me is I have severe ADHD. I'm sure you can tell. And it's all over me. And I see it as my superpower instead of my super weakness. But growing up, I was always told like you're too much. We can't handle you. I had friends growing up that their parents wouldn't let me spend the night unless my dad gave them my medication for the next morning. Like I grew up knowing that Elise was too much for everyone besides Barry and Sandy. And that's my mom and my dad.
Yeah.
And that's why my mom and my dad and I are so close, because they have always been the safest place for my personality. And so to hear the woman that you've served for 15 years, that you've been loyal to, that you were in the hospital holding her baby, that you watched her children when things went wrong, you are in her family's life, you've spent the night at her mom's house, like I was in their life more than just an intern or a youth leader or a junior high pastor, and I'm tolerated. And I don't remember the rest of that night. I left her house and I got to work the next morning, and I went and I told HR, because our church was so big, we had an HR department. And I went and I told HR, and HR said, well, you need to go to her first before we can bring this to anyone else, if that's what you want to do. And I said, okay. And I wish so badly that I would have voice memoed it. I wish I would have been smart enough. But I took notes on a notepad that I have now lost. But I went into her office and I confronted her. And I said, it shattered me last night when you told me that you tolerated me. And you know my story. You know more than anyone that I have felt tolerated by the world forever. And you know that I'm afraid I'll never get married because no man will ever want to tolerate me. And for you to say those words to me, it crushed me. And she said the exact same thing she had said years prior when I confronted her. Honey, this sounds like an insecurity that we need to work on. You work in a
Yes.
man's world, and men are not going to tolerate you if you are like this. You've got to get you some thicker skin if you're going to be able to succeed. And then she just started coaching me on how to be more secure in myself and not be so insecure about my
Oh,
ADHD.
she didn't own any of that. She
No,
didn't own it. Yeah.
no.
Typical. Elise, I'm so sorry. I wow. Again, that's ego. It's so hard because they were close to you. You did love them. You do probably still do
Very
love
much
them.
so.
Yeah. And for them to treat you like that and to, tolerate you. No, and I don't want to assign a motive, but I'm pretty sure that just, from the school they come from as far as Cadre and Jeannie, they do. Jeannie loves to just take information and weaponize it and use the hook. That word tolerate was definitely um intentional, and because they know you, they know that was going to trigger you and get you back in line.
Yeah.
Tolerate. We need to tolerate. We're doing you a favor. We're doing you a favor by tolerating
Right.
you in our ministry. Oh, by the way, you've worked like 60 hours a week for the last 10 years,
Yeah.
whatever.
You're privileged to be able to do that for us. That's the attitude they come at you with. You're privileged to be
Yeah.
able to lay down everything in your life, and including your health and your well-being, your self-esteem, all of those things. It's your privilege to do that, to serve us. That's the attitude that we
Yeah.
see over and over again coming from this system.
Yeah.
And that's wrong.
And my health was actually impacted greatly from that time that engagement broke up until I left. That church in San Jose was about a year and a half, maybe. from engagement to leaving the church. Um, and and then I went to another AG church and was there for a year. So for those 2.5 years, I actually had severe pain in an area of my abdomen. It's like my upper right abdomen. And I had countless ultrasounds. I was one time at her house, like in the fetal position in her son's room at a youth event, like a youth leadership event. Um, and I was in misery, and she was like, "You need to go to the ER." And I went to the ER and nothing was wrong. Like they couldn't find anything. And they just kept diagnosing me with GERD because like doctors couldn't put their thumb on what it was. And when I left the Assemblies of God, haven't had it since.
Yeah.
The body,
Literally,
the body keeps score.
the
Yeah.
body
Wow.
keeps score.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Elise, it's been great having you. I'm really sorry that all this stuff happened to you. I'm really appreciative of your effort. We've gotten to know you because of the podcast and the Facebook page. And I know there's a website coming. Tell us a little about the website.
Yeah. So it's right now it's www.aganonymous.org. I hope to get that switched back to com. There's some technical difficulties. We own both domains. Our group does, but somehow the transfers from one website generator to the next are having a tiff. So we'll get that figured out. But it's right now it's www.aganonymous.org. And you can go on that website and you can submit a story anonymously. No one sees who sent that story, not even me. So it's just a fully anonymous generator. You can write your story. You can write more than one story. And then also on that website, we want to be able to connect you, you as the viewers, to any of the stories that are coming out. There's a lot of stories right now about the Assemblies of God that are coming forward. NBC News has a huge piece, like almost a whole page of the NBC News website is dedicated to Assemblies of God cover-up stories, specifically with sexual abuse. And so we have all of those stories linked on our website. We have a ton of podcast episodes from Groomed.Connect as well as a few others. There's also the NBC documentary Pastors and Pray is linked on there. So we just wanted to
Wow.
be a landing page for people. So that way girls like me, men like me who Google search AG abuse can find some answers when they search that term, and that they can know that they're not alone.
That's awesome. That's so cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
The last thing she said, that people know that they're not alone, because
Yeah.
one of the primary tactics that these people have used over the years, they use it on Mike, they use it on me, they use it on Elise, countless others, is to isolate you, to make you feel like you're alone, to silence you, to shut you up. And the
Right.
most powerful thing that we can do is give voice to the thousands out there.
Yep.
To give voice to the thousands out there, to speak out for their own well-being, for the well-being of others who have had similar experiences, and for the well-being of the world. Because I will just say right now, the AG is the largest Pentecostal denomination in the world, and they need to get it together or they need to go away.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
100%.
agree.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Elise and
Thank
Brian. It's good to
you.
see you again with your bald head, and we will see you guys.
Brian, you got to get back at him one of these days.
No. Brian knows better.
He's on his way. Give him about 5 years. He'll have some shiny stuff up there.
All right.
Whoa.
Well, God bless you guys. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Thank you,
Don't
Elise.
forget to share
Thank
this
you
and
guys.
yeah. Thanks, Elise. You're awesome. All right. Bye, everybody. Stay
Bye,
on,
everybody.
Elise.